We got breaking news from both Trenton and Albany tonight. Let's start in Jersey. In the wake of the GW bridge scandals, a bi-state review of the Port Authority, we are learning, is coming. Governors Christie and Cuomo made that announcement together in a late afternoon press release, their first joint effort or statement since the bridge scandal broke. Now, it is officially being called a bi-state special panel on the future of the Port Authority. 2 commissioners from each state and a representative from each governor's office will review and evaluate reforms of the Port Authority's mission, structure, management, operations, and overall governance. The letter noting some of the issues necessitating the reform panel, including New York's solo actions in revamping both JFK and LaGuardia airports and the George Washington Bridge scandal, of course. Richard, you've been involved and you've seen mismanagement at the Port Authority for a long time. What do you take from that?
Well, I take that if they mean it, they're going to have to give up power. And part
to
of
whom?
To that's a very good question. To legislative bodies, to the commissioners themselves, to an outside monitor. Most government agencies are subject to oversight by.
Don't they appoint the commissioners, though?
They appoint the commissioners, but there's no one looking over anybody's shoulders. When we reformed New York's authorities, we set up an independent budget office. We set up a transparency situation where everything was on a website in real time. We created a fiduciary duty that the people appointed had to do what's right by the agency, not by what they were told. In other words, the commissioners were more like judges appointed by the governor, but they don't make decisions based on what the governor wants, than they were commissioners of DOT appointed, but they have to do what they're told.
Yes.
In that dispute is where real reform lies. I'm not convinced that these guys are committed to that.
You also have an Inspector General's office in the Port Authority that seemed to be part of the problem also. And so maybe setting up an independent office of the Inspector General, however that a bit of approval from the legislative body would help also. Because that's supposed to be your first stop in fighting fraud and corruption, is it?
Let's not let this go without also checking the timing and the way this is working. This is the first time that Cuomo and Christie have worked together since the scandal broke. As we reported earlier this week, questions are now starting to be focused on Albany a little bit. What did Cuomo know? What did he do? When did he know it? And the fact that they are now together taking action to try to reform the agency together, while I think the agency certainly needs some reform and some oversight, I think also speaks to some of the political damage that both men may be trying to
There's
stave
an
off.
ongoing lawsuit brought by AAA against the Port Authority because they raised tolls to build the World Trade Center. That lawsuit is going to do more to clarify what's going on than any of this other self-serving
Real
stuff.
quick before I get to the next one, nobody debates that there was a phone call made from Governor Christie to Governor Cuomo not soon after the scandal first came up, and there was a turf war between, in effect, the Port Authority representative on the Jersey side and on the New York side, and Foy was having none of it. Will we ever learn what the content of that conversation was?
The AAA lawsuit is going to open the door to release of a set of documents that will release other documents. It's been the quiet part of the scandal, but in the end, I think that's what's going to open the floodgates to document production.
We will never know the content of that conversation. As a matter of fact, it may be privileged conversation between 2 governors, but this is a Band-Aid approach. It's all about public relations. It's not going to do anything. The Port Authority is a political agency. It's always been that way. It's going to remain that way.
We're going to get another report.
Right, another report. That's it.
On the
That's
subject
not
of
what we did in New
Bridgegate,
York.
well, we can hope. On the subject of Bridgegate, we go back to Trenton there, and Christina Wren, a name you may remember that was involved in this. She was an aide to Bridget Kelly. She, the author of, the course, that famous Time for Traffic Problems in Fort Lee email. Well, before the investigative committee today, headline number 1, Wren deleted a government email on orders from Bridget Kelly.
Well, I clarified. I said, you want me to delete the email? I said that to her. And she said, yes, listen, I'm getting a lot of questions and I'm just really nervous.
Okay, headline number 2, Renna breaking from Governor Christie over the accuracy of the Christie-ordered report that the governor now says clears him of any wrongdoing.
There are some inaccuracies, the largest, as I stated earlier, being the mandatory directives. Language I would never use, but generally speaking, I was pleased with the portrayal.
And for the investigators, there was another major takeaway from today's testimony.
The testimony that Bridget Kelly could not make this kind of decision on her own is substantial testimony.
And there's Assemblyman Wisniewski, which for all intents and purposes, he with Loretta Weinberg next to him, Wisniewski's really leading the legislative investigation from this. A few cracks at least, would you say, Andrew, and at least the story to this point?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, deleted emails smacks of something foul, and the reasoning behind that, obviously, they'll get into.
But still directly attached to Kelly, no one else at this point.
Right, at this point. But notice the last soundbite that we heard from Wisniewski there, that this shows that Kelly couldn't have acted on her own. So they're trying to climb the ladder and see where the authority came from and who eventually did give the go-ahead for this all to happen. They're trying to trace it back.
So if this takes the approach of the Benghazi investigation,
God,
then
I
this
knew
will
you were
have
gonna
no
go there.
effect on
By the
Chris
way, you
Christie's
started
career.
mine. Yeah.
All right, I just gotta tell you that.
Okay. Yeah, you got it in, by the way, twice tonight. Well done.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Okay, when we come back here, this is not a partisan issue. Senator Gillibrand sounding off to RFL about the government probes into campus sex assault cases.